Hey everyone, and thanks so much for checking out this video. Before we actually dive into it, I wanted to spend just a second of your time as a TLDR. What I really hope that you take away from this video, what New World has taught us over this course of this last weekend, as well as other MMOs, and the impact of CCU on the MMO genre as a whole. Now, CCU stands for Concurrent Users, and what I believe, as my kind of thesis in this video hopes to communicate, it's that CCU is a placeholder for player trust. The reason why we value it so highly in some games and not at all in other games tends to be that we trust those other games and the development cycles of them. So that's what we want to explore today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you soon. I think it's no secret that the conversation around New World, especially as it relates to the conversation online, has started to shift. It started to shift in such a way that there might be some hopium for players who really enjoyed this game to talk about. And one of the things that I've been waiting to see, just itching to see, is that what impact would the latest round of updates, patch 1.5, the Heart of Madness update, have on the game, and what would the double XP weekend have? Is this going to be a positive change? Is there going to be no change whatsoever? Or would we see players ultimately return to New World? And this is what we've seen, because ultimately at the end of the day, and we've already seen it, people discounting the growth that we've seen and will continue to actually see over the course of the next couple days, and I'll explain why in here in just a second. But the growth that we've seen is just because of the double XP, that there was really nothing magical about it. And I can understand the detractors, so we can kind of put them over there in the little corner of the internet, because that's really where they belong. And then we can look at the positive side of what we're seeing. Now let's just take a look at some of the numbers first, because this isn't just about numbers. It's actually about player sentiment. It's about how players perceive the game, because I think that is going to be one of the key defining factors. If the New World devs can continue to communicate, we can start to see kind of a slow march back to relevancy. Not that I have actually stepped away from the game, and you should note that I am an active player of New World. I absolutely love this game, but I want to try to take a very analytical approach to this weekend, what it tells us positively, what it tells us negatively, what concerns and hopes there are to explore in this. So first and foremost, with the numbers right now, at the time of this recording, just under 20,000 players playing. 24-hour peak though at 37,000, which is up from their previous peak at 34,000 as we look at an average of 30 so odd days. You can see here, as some of the lower averages end up dropping off, the gain is going to continue to increase, and that percentage gain will continue to increase. So New World actually sees its first positive green numbers ever. This is essentially from the start, and we've seen it slowly, or actually rapidly, drop down. Now, as to the speed of its descent, can always be debated, but even still within its player base that is garnishing, it is still one of the top most played games on Steam. There's a lot that we want to break down here, but just note this number will continue to actually grow green for a while before it dips back into the red. And the reason is that as the law of averages, as your lower numbers end up dropping off, you'll end up seeing that kind of return. So overall, the weekend had a very positive impact on player numbers. Maybe it was what you were expecting, maybe it wasn't, but we're starting to see that aspect come into play. But note that this isn't essentially a sign of it being saved, nor is it a sign of its impending doom. And this is where the conversation I'm seeing shift online. I'm just going to highlight several posts that I've seen. I'm enjoying the March update. I think it's good. I'm finally optimistic about New World. New World is better now. Awesome to see the latest patch was handled and executed really well by AG. Should we change our reviews to positive now? Is it safe to tell people to come back to New World? But beyond these positive reviews, because ultimately how I see these things working across all MMOs is that constant flow of joy and frustration as they get balanced back and forth. One of the core questions is that they didn't like the February update, but the March update was really great. It's rumored right now that the April update, especially for New World, is going to kind of be more of a bugs and balance fix, where then the May update might be the update that actually introduces the 3v3 PvP mode. So at its core, players are going to be happy and maybe even frustrated depending on patch to patch. But overall, like, seeing a shift in online and the fact that you can also start to talk about New World positively outside of its own, I guess, protected spaces tends to signal that maybe that the tides are changing. Not that this is, again, a perfect be-all, end-all scientific study, but I want to show you guys and highlight what I mean by excitement, by news, by updates. And let's use Final Fantasy XIV, another core game that I love and have covered for many years, about. First and foremost, the common critique I get whenever I bring up this kind of comparison is that Final Fantasy XIV exists on PC outside of Steam, Final Fantasy XIV exists on PlayStation, and that is very true. So note that these numbers themselves are just a reflection of the overall trend. So these numbers aren't the be-all, end-all. You have to add in, you know, who knows, maybe another 100,000 on top of this to count for PC and PlayStation, and that's just a rough estimate by me, based off of the players and the interactions that I have in the game itself. But right here, you can see new Final Fantasy XIV Steam charts at 13,000 concurrent at the moment. And then you can see here, just over the last, release of it, positive, negative. Really positive, that is the launch of Endwalker. And then after people have beaten it, that falls off. And then guess what? Here's, I think, what is the proof in the pudding. Here is essentially where I, feel like my theories are proven true in this regards. You can let me know clearly in the comments. But you had the live letter this weekend, and guess what you see? You see positive growth based off the excitement about what is to come with the game. New World actually launched its patch and had a weekend to drive people back in. The fact that you don't have to pay a single dime to do so, to check it out, that's actually one of the answers that I gave somebody saying, hey, should I come check out the game? And I said, yeah, I think that they're doing these things very well right. But here's the best part. You just update the game and you can feel it for yourself whether this is a time to come back and spend more time in the game itself. I'm very curious to speak on this because one of the reasons I want to put this video out is maybe I get to do a follow-up video next week. And that follow-up video tied into what happens when there isn't a double XP weekend around to drive people into the game. Do we see similar numbers? I'm guessing we might see less numbers unless more positivity generated online drives more people to come back and check it out from a curious perspective. I think what the new double XP weekend shows us is that is something that is a possibility for the future. And I think that's a really good sign for the devs themselves. Now, I don't think that we want to make every weekend a double XP weekend. Otherwise, you're only incentivizing kind of just that play. But you could think about, especially as they release a patch, it just kind of makes sense. Maybe you do a double XP weekend per every patch that you release in the game itself. So all in all, more than the player numbers, player sentiment online is going well. And what also kind of highlights this is my New World Focus channel, in which that I've been putting my guides and information out, seeing positive, seeing people jump into that, being excited for the game, returning to the game when they left it in October or November or December. Over concurrence, I think are overvalued because you don't have trust. We don't have trust yet in Amazon. I think Amazon's going to have to spend a lot of time building that. That takes years of time to build that. It takes consistency to build that. But as they build that, you'll start to see the conversation around concurrence die down because you know that, hey, the next thing's coming. And I think Amazon's doing a lot of hard work in that space to kind of bring that about. But it's on them. It's on them to deliver. And I would be very curious if you've checked out New World recently, if you were part of the weekend double XP, what did you think about it? Positive, negative, all opinions matter, especially as it relates to these games. Anyway, guys, I wanted to present that. I think, again, concurrency is that lack of trust in the developer, and that's why it's overvalued. And then as that trust builds, concurrency lessons, and that's taking it back to Final Fantasy and taking it back to any game where you don't see that same narrative applied because you know that patch 6.1 is coming, you know that patch 6.2 is going to be there, and this is what it's going to deliver. Whether that's something that you're excited about or not, I think the numbers clearly kind of reflect how players engage and disengage with certain games over the course of a long period of time. If these are single player games, none of this matters, but because these are multiplayer games, there is a level of value that people put into it because you don't want to invest your time in a game that is going away. And the reason why that trust is important is because you don't know if the game will be here or not, because many of us have been burned by other MMOs before. Anyway, guys, I'd love to know your thoughts. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to making some more videos for you guys this week. Hopefully, I'll see you in those. But until then, take care.
Yeah. It's time to chill out on the couch and read some comments. That's right. You know me when it comes to Destiny. I'm off with a clan, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Oh, yeah.